Okay, I think yes. Just want to be sure that we are live. Okay, yes, we are. Well, welcome everybody to Techies 15 Live by Immigrant Techies Network. This is our weekly drop-by session that we do as a way of keeping up with what's going on in the ecosystem, who is building what, who is doing what great work. And yeah, so today we are here with James again. So the last time, if you remember, we hosted James. We advertised that we were hosting James, and it turned out that we thought we live streamed that session, but we ended up not live streaming it. So it was just me and James having a cool chat. So yeah. So we have James back, and welcome James Cairns. So
Thanks.
can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your career journey, and yeah, let's meet you briefly.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey. By and large, my career has actually been with one employer with Bow Valley College. But yeah, I wasn't necessarily a linear path into cybersecurity. I originally started as a developer back in 2005, and did a lot of development work, and that was kind of where my first passion was. Moved along from there. I had spent a bit of time overseas, but then came back to working and doing ERP specialization and working around that. And then moved from there into doing sysadmin and sysops, as well as doing database administration work by and large. And that's where kind of my foray into cybersecurity really got into. I got kind of into vulnerability management, and then from there moved into wanting to do this full time. And so full time was turned into being the lead of the IT security team, and that was a team of one, and then kind of growing that team. So that's been about the last 6 years. I'm now the CISO here at Bow Valley College. Yeah.
Yeah, my volume is actually really low. Yes, I was struggling to hear you, but it's my end. Where I am, so just for everybody, I'm at the Global Energy Show right now. So this is me trying to, multitask and make sure that this show happens. So yeah, and what I would like to hear, James, is what have you seen change in the field of cybersecurity over the course of your career? What have you seen come and go? And with AI, what's going to change again? For people that are contemplating coming into that field, what should they be considering, given how fast things change?
So I think one common thread that kind of comes through it is the scope and velocity is I'm going to say in a sense is a constant, in the sense that it actually scope always is increasing so drastically. The pace at which things are changing is so drastic, even from when I
Okay, I'm
kind of
just
when I
moving, trying to find somewhere quieter, but
so even for myself in the last, I'm going to say, 5 or 6 years being directly in cybersecurity, the the scope of what we were looking at, the amount of incidents, the amount of data we're looking at has quadrupled or more. The amount of incidents that we're seeing day over day has done the same. So I think we're seeing this velocity of the changes that are kind of occurring throughout the event, or throughout the kind of event timeline that we see is just exploded. The I tell people within my team and the kind of within the organization that if you looked at my skill set coming back when I started my career and looking at what would be asking now, I would never be hired. Right? It's just the scope that
mm,
changed, and what we would view as kind of the problem, so to speak, has kind of has really just totally grossly changed. So that what has been interesting I've seen though too is from the aspect of like my team and how it's structured and built is people that are starting their career. I think having grown up in technology even more so than I myself as at a certain age that I am,
mhm.
they have a the conversation of scope for me would have been okay. Like you would tell me the scope of like we're dealing with X million records or things like that, and I would have been like, oh, and be really scared about it. The person that's coming into cybersecurity now out of school is saying, okay, that's what the problem set is. It's just it is what it is, and okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's just the scale of what we're dealing with. So I think that's it's interesting because I think from the aspect that there's some of us that have kind of grown our career that have this aspect of understanding, been in the trenches and understand what's going on, but there's also the people that are coming into the field that are now just able to deal with here's the scope, here's the velocity, and this is just what the table stakes are. So I think there's kind of that two kind of aspects that kind of out of that too.
Yeah. And I mean, I see your role has changed since we last spoke. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's cool to see. And so because you work with the post-secondary, from an educational perspective, what do you think needs to change in how technology is taught?
I think it's always the never ending game of playing catch up with the velocity of how change happens.
Mm-hmm.
There's the regulatory side of things, the the professional side of things, where we have to make sure that the programs we build actually
Yeah,
provide a function
declared
that's
ones.
in
Mm-hmm.
line with what's required. But the with how fast cybersecurity is changing in a lot of the aspects of at least the new technology. The basics are still the basics, right? I think, and the basics are table stakes, but the velocity with what the new things are, talking about AI threats and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Writing something now to be brought into play and tested even in a year, and then another year on by the time the person's maybe through a certificate program or through a diploma, or that's really hard for someone. So I think being able to close that gap and reiterate through those really quickly is crucial. I think that's probably the hardest thing for post secondaries, even for training or certification bodies too as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the hardest thing, is really trying to keep up with that velocity of change, and make sure that you're providing the quality content that you need to
Yeah, make
keep
learning
moving.
more modular. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
If possible. And how about for organizations? So let's say an organization that already has a security team. How can they be sure that their team is up to date in terms of skills? What should organizations be doing to future-proof their talent, their workforce, to be sure that no matter what is changing, they are on top of it? Because it's one thing to think, oh, I already hired a cybersecurity team and pat myself on the back, right? So what does a continuous learning within an organization look like?
I think for me, what I see is I talked to this a bit about the time talking about a layer of abstraction. I call it kind of the architect's lens. So what I mean by that is that when you're dealing with a solution or an issue, you're a lot of times dealing with a very technical issue, and you see something. So as a developer, you have a solution that you're trying to achieve, and you're normally looking at the nuts and bolts of things. So basically, and similarly with AI, because AI is so fastly changing. There's a lot of concern about, oh, AI is going to take my job and AI is going to do this, and it's like, well, no, it still is a tool that functions. So what you need to do is take the architect's lens, instead of being, as using the developer as an example again. You're no longer looking at the issue as a developer. You're no longer looking at it as a practitioner. You're looking at that architectural kind of lens. You're looking at the broader scope. You're taking a step back and saying, okay, where am I looking at now? And continually doing that. So I think with your training, with your skill set, I mean, I
Mm,
think there's really good to be really highly specialized in certain areas, but there could be really disrupted really easily. So what I would do is always continually kind of bring that back and start to look at that. For example, for myself, AI governance became something that was critical. So in this last year, I've taken a lot of AI governance training, whereas a
mhm.
year prior to that, there was no training around that whatsoever. So that's
True,
again
true.
allowing me to look at AI from a lens of looking across, not point solutions or single solutions, but looking at kind of the architecture, the space landscape as a whole, and kind of stepping back. And so I think that's where the critical thinking or skills for people, whether you're starting as an analyst or you're somewhere else in your career, you kind of take that step back to look at things, and provide that kind of lifting up and moving in your career that way too.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're the chief information officer at Bow Valley College, and you're taking courses. I'm just saying, I'm just, just letting people know that you never arrive. Like gone are the days, are the years where you could do a degree and think you're set for life in terms of your learning. Now, yeah,
Absolutely,
no one can
absolutely.
afford that, right?
I looked at the training that I did, I'm gonna say formally, to get my diploma when I first started, and that. And when I look at the amount of time that I spent, I look at it, and I've actually probably spent throughout my career 5 to 6 times that amount of time actually just in upskilling and re
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
I've looked at it, and there's certain times I would look back now, I'm like, why did I ever take that? But in that point in my career, that's what
That's what
mattered.
made the most
and
sense. Yeah.
and made the most sense. But now, there's new things, and I might look back and say in a year, why did I ever take AI governance? Because something's gone in a totally different way that I would have never dreamed. Like that's the kind of example. But I think, yeah, you have to be prepared to look at that upskilling, and just that it's going to be just an investment in your career. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can get to one point and stop. Now it's just there's you'll be left in the dust. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm putting you on the spot now as someone that works in the academic environment. So let's say there's someone fresh out of high school and they're thinking, I want to learn cybersecurity, I want to be in that field, I want to solve problems in that field. I could take a micro credential, I could take a degree program, I could take courses on Udemy, I could take community programs like the kind of programs we would do at Immigrant Techies, at so many training organizations out there. So, what do you say to them? Is it
Uh,
still worth going the full route of a
I,
university degree or full-on academic pursuit, or would you do just as well with courses here and there?
I would say there's a couple of routes. Like there's for more that those that are coming out directly out of high school, and it depends on what your aptitude was. If you're doing, for example, try and hack the box, or there's certain things that you're doing already that may lead you kind of down more of the micro credentialing route. If you're unsure, and you need kind of that you haven't been trained in that area, I would say definitely more traditional route. Now, I have a definite lens into it and bias from my organization. Going in through a diploma or a certificate programs are a great way to get trained, get out, and get working. So like that's where I would kind of, to me, I see that lens is you might not have the same uh, job prospects as a 4 year degree, but you're at least coming in as maybe a very junior analyst, and learning your way, your trade. The things that I would say, like where what I would actually encourage somebody to do is take aptitude tests of where in cybersecurity field you think
Mm,
you would want to be in. Some people think that they want to be a pen tester, but then don't realize what that all entails, or they want to be in governance, risk, and compliance. They don't understand that. So like that's the things I would suggest. And then I think that micro credentialing really has a strong place, especially around the upskilling, because it's taking on you're competent, you're looking at competencies, and you're trying to determine where you already have those competencies and not redo that. So
mm-hmm,
interestingly, that's how we're structuring our micro credentials at the organization I'm at, to basically make it so that you come in and you only go through what you really need to learn, right? Not the things that you already have, the table stakes that are already there, but the stuff that you need to
mm-hmm.
kind of
And
expand.
what do you see also in terms of the interconnectedness of all these tech fields, the emerging fields? So we're talking cybersecurity, we're talking machine learning, we quantum fits in there somehow, maybe blockchain enters in a way, like so. Do we have to learn it all? How does that work?
I think you have to have at least a passing understanding. I think, for example, it's dangerous, for example, for me to turn a blind eye, for example, to quantum, right? Like I think that's dangerous. So I think there has to be, whether it's formal training or not, I'm not sure if
Mm-hmm.
that's required. Maybe it's taking a few half day courses or free courses, Udemy or whatever, MOOC that we're using of the day. I think that's a good use of time. But I don't think, yeah, I think there still has to be that, same as you have the architect kind of standpoint, you have to have a bit more of that maybe generalist
Mm-hmm.
lens on certain things. I think you still need to understand. You need to understand how machine learning works. You need to understand how AI models work and what's the difference between
Right,
different AI
right.
models. But yeah, I don't think you necessarily need to be the specialist. I think it's good to refer to specialists or hire up and train specialists where there's the
Mm-hmm.
real need that way.
And the bad players are always innovating too. They know how to use one technology to hack another one. So, so yeah, we can't afford to just stick, have one specialty and feel like we are insulated from the other ones.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think definitely it's definitely to understand that. And there is going to be places for people in their careers that do highly specialize. And I encourage them to do that too. Just for me, when I look at it, it's the understanding of trying to
Mm-hmm.
have a horizon type view, looking at all the different things
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that matter.
Awesome. Yeah, we have time. Any other thing you would like to share that I have not asked or anything like that?
Well, I think probably is just there's a lot of uncertainty in probably the field and in the economy and that I think I know there's lots of people that are coming into jobs are looking to change and that I just I think with that uncertainty there's also a bit of hope. I think there's some things
Mm,
that can really change and there's some definite positive parts around that. So as people look to get careers or change careers, just be encouraged. It might take a little bit longer to get into where you're hoping to, but I think that there's still that hope and that opportunity
mhm.
there to be able to do that. So I think that's just
Well,
want to
thanks for
make
that
sure that I encourage that.
encouragement.
Yeah,
I know lots of people that could use that right now.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much, James. So how do people stay in touch with you if they want to reach out to you? What's the best way?
On LinkedIn. So I am on LinkedIn, so you can find me with my full name there on LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
we'll go from there for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, James. And thanks,
Yeah,
everybody. Thanks
thanks.
for joining us. We know this video will still be available for a bit on LinkedIn, so feel free to watch it at a later time as well.
Sounds
Awesome.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a great afternoon.
You
Bye.
too.